Oh, hoy hoy, welcome in. I am Tyrell McLaughlin. You can follow me on Twitter at TNFFTyrell. Make sure you're following the website at TrueNorthFFB on Twitter and at TrueNorthFFB.com. Find all the rankings, all the content there. I thought I'd just hop on, do a quick ditty about Cam Newton signing with the Patriots. Pretty exciting stuff, and I think we're going to see a lot of buzz, sort of snowball when it comes to Cam Newton throughout this offseason, and once we get into training camps, fingers crossed. So Cam Newton, he's 30 years old now. He's coming off that Liz Frank injury, but really, he could not have found himself in a better situation now in Foxborough. I say question number one for Cam Newton is, what does he look like? Hopefully we've all kind of moved into a new comfort zone with Cam. If we own him in Dynasty or something, like we're not expecting those top 5 performances for fantasy like days past, I don't think. But we also saw him with North Turner once Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore was drafted in Carolina. We saw Cam can operate in a safer, shorter average depth of target offense. And in fact, the last full season we saw him in 2018, Cam posted just under a 68% completion percentage. That was a career high by 6%. But we also saw Cam taking far less risks with his arm in that 2018 season. His average depth of target fell below 10. That was the first time he had an ADOT below 10 in his whole entire career. But I do think, unfortunately, that's the usage that's probably closer to what we should anticipate for Cam in Foxborough with the Patriots. I think we can have some confidence in the Patriots scheming up the offense, though, of course. Even back in 2008, Matt Castle was the quarterback 7 in fantasy. And guess what? He had even 73 carries in that season for New England. Also, I think we should give Cam a little bit of credit for his ability to adapt in his Carolina days, because he definitely did so. When Christian McCaffrey was drafted top 10, everybody said Cam does not throw to the running back position, and then he did. We also heard he can never complete over 65% of his passes in a full season, and he did. So I think a lot of that, what I'm talking about is that for real football terms, we can have some faith in Cam Newton working out with the New England Patriots. For fantasy, I think it's a much broader question. I think it depends a lot on how much this hype builds. I think even if Cam is used in a safer and more efficient manner, we've seen sort of the limitations he has with his arms. With his arm, that's probably my number one question I have is for fantasy viability, can he put up that spike season without putting up the huge rushing totals? And we know Cam is only over 4,000 yards passing once in his career in 9 seasons. And on that note, Cam hasn't had a 30 touchdown season since 2015, since that MVP season. And actually, that's 30 total touchdowns, by the way, like rushing and passing combined. He hasn't hit 30 since that MVP season 5 years ago. So it probably comes down to how much Cam will use his legs. And for me, it really is going to come down to his price in fantasy drafts, of course. The rushing production for Cam, it was scaled back inside that safer offense I cited in 2018 in Carolina. Career high in completion percentage by far, yes, but it was arguably his worst season on the ground. And it really cemented the page turn for Cam as a fantasy asset, in my opinion. 2018, it marked his lowest rushing touchdown total, also his second lowest rushing total. Cam has actually failed to eclipse 65 yards rushing in any game since 2017. That's 19 straight games under 65 yards rushing. Cam Newton, fantasy owners have gone as far as his legs will take him, really. Cam's finished as a top 5 quarterback in 5 seasons during his career. That's going to be part of the hype. We're going to have the New England hype. We're going to have the Cam Newton hype, the name brand hype. But the 4 times he's failed to be that difference maker for a fantasy team, Cam's been outside the quarterback 1 range, quarterback 13 or worse, all other times in fantasy, including 3 of the past 4 seasons. What that has to do with the rushing production is that in all 5 of Cam's big seasons for fantasy, he's hit both 585 yards rushing and 6 rushing touchdowns. So basically, unless you think Cam Newton rushes for 600 yards and scores 6 rushing touchdowns or more, you might want to avoid him for fantasy. And obviously that's drawing just off his historical data. The argument for Cam Newton in fantasy is pretty easy. My favorite would just be a sentimental, narrative-driven one, and that's that the draft board is so gross this year at quarterback. Like, we chase a certain profile of quarterback late in drafts. We covet particular traits. That's how we find these gems that can just blow past their ADP. Think of quarterbacks like Kyler or Lamar Jackson last year, right? But this year, we just don't find those quarterbacks later in drafts, but one guy all of a sudden who does have that rushing profile and is priced in the double-digit rounds of fantasy drafts, that's Cam Newton. So it's in the range of outcomes that he actually turns out to be that dude this year, regardless of youth usually being synonymous with those quarterbacks who pay off later in drafts for fantasy. The other argument is just how pass-heavy New England was last year, and also they have enjoyed some of the easiest strength of schedules imaginable in the past half-decade. Just totally unfair in New England there. However, this season could be different, and it certainly looks like it should be on paper. But last year, New England threw the ball over 600 times, even with that easy strength of schedule. And Timmy Brady was top 10 in completed and intended air yards, and that was entirely via compiling, because over 400 of his passes traveled 9 yards or less last year for Tom Brady. So I expect New England to throw the ball a ton with the weapons in the system, with the strength of schedule, with the glimpse of a safer Cam from 2018. It should remain a pretty dink and dunk passing game in New England in 2020, even with Cam at the helm. So to wrap it up, I mean, Cam is my quarterback 13, 14, 15, somewhere in that range for fantasy right now. Just updated my rankings. I might be targeting him in redraft specifically because of the names and the profile of quarterbacks late in the draft that I was talking about. And because you can always drop a quarterback that you draft in the 10th or 11th round, right, if you're redraft league. But I kind of hinted at it. Cam Newton has always been overdrafted for the last 3 or 4 years straight. So he could still have that stigma attached to him, that name brand kind of vibe to Cam Newton, and that could be doubled with the Patriots hype. So I just wanted to hop on and give my quick thoughts about the Patriots, about Cam Newton, and what it means. I think we can go into the weapons, and obviously Julian Edelman's moving up our board. I think N'Keal Harry might jump the shark when it comes to his value, and that's kind of what we're talking about with Cam Newton as well. So we're going to have to monitor those things, and we want to let them breathe a little bit, but we will go into the weapons in the near future. I think James White's moving up the board. I think Edelman is moving up the board, but the rest of them I really want to let it breathe. So I appreciate you joining me at TNFF Tyrell on Twitter, at TrueNorthFFB.